Well, hello, my friends. The Best Coast Sports Connection is back in action. I'm your host, Andy Bishop, joined by my man, Brian Vilvin. Good evening, sir.
Hey, happy prime time, Andy B.
Prime time.
Tuesday night prime time. This is party time.
Take steps here with the connection. Also joined by our producer, Thomas Conroy. How you doing, sir?
How you doing, guys?
Great. I mean, Taco Tuesday, prime time.
Andy, tell them where we're at.
We're at McGregor's, and it's Taco Tuesday every Tuesday of the year.
Until LeBron takes the run from us.
It's some deals on their amazing world-renowned fish tacos.
Yep.
As well as some $5 cocktails and Pacificos, if I'm not mistaken. So.
And technically, I think we're still in happy hour for another hour, so the drinks are. If you're around, come down to McGregor's. Yeah. Come have a party. Come say hello. We'll throw you on.
Good to be here with you guys, as always. Good to be alive and surviving after this last weekend of football action. We, of course, have our Survivor League going on that we're really excited about. 65 people officially.
Yep.
Only 4 teams lost, or 4 people were eliminated. All of us still somehow remaining. A majority of people took the Seahawks, almost half the people, I think 31 people.
Yep.
Including
myself.
Yeah, plenty took the Eagles, another handful took the Ravens, and then the Dallas Cowboys. Those were the 4 most popular picks.
Oh, the Chargers were one of them.
The Chargers were one. Yeah, I think maybe Dallas was pick number 5. So as you guys were maybe watching the games or at least following them, how were your emotions on Sunday?
Well, I finished up a baseball game, and I had a text message saying something along the lines of, I hope you didn't pick the Eagles. I didn't pick the Eagles. I picked the Seahawks. But my fiance, Alyssa, wanted to pick the Patriots because she doesn't know anything about football. And I strongly encouraged her to go off the Patriots because I thought they had a tough one against Pittsburgh. They ended up smashing Pittsburgh. Whew. But I encouraged her to take the Eagles. And if she had lost after I'm not going to say forced because that's a really harsh term, but strongly encouraged her to take Philadelphia, saying this is a complete lock. Watch the video. I said it's a lock here. Everyone agreed with me, and they had lost. And it was 20-7 at the time. So that was the first game that I sweated it out just because I knew how much trouble I would be in if the Eagles actually lost. They came through and did what we thought they would do, but boy, oh boy, that was a scary first half of Sunday.
Certainly. I was working most of the day, so I didn't have much chance to watch the games on TV. I picked the Eagles. First score I saw when I had a quick break at work was 17-0 in favor of the Redskins, and I'm like, are you kidding me?
And it's over.
Week 1, this is ridiculous. Thankfully, they of course came back. But that is football. I mean, that's why we love it. It's nonstop on Sunday, playing with your emotions.
Week 1 in the NFL is so unpredictable every single time. And you warned us before, because I've never done a Survivor League before. You said it gets crazy. A lot of people are going to lose in the first week. And, man, you weren't lying.
Yeah. So we'll get to fantasy in a minute, but we talked about our Survivor picks. There were a few other games that we talked about in our analysis. You mentioned Baltimore. They've, of course, killed the terrible Dolphins there. I liked the Titans beating the Browns. But as you look,
that was a great pick.
Yeah, as you look at everything, what was the most impressive performance that you saw from a team?
It's so easy to look at that Ravens game against the Dolphins and think that was the most impressive victory because it was the most sound victory. It was never in doubt. But I'm going to go with the New England Patriots.
Yeah.
Tom Brady looked like a 25-year-old quarterback. They absolutely dominated the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I did not see that coming. I mean, at this point, Tom Brady's been to more championship games than he hasn't, and he's won more Super Bowls than any player in the NFL, and why would we not think that would happen? But for them to consistently do that and to do it again in such emphatic fashion. I was the most impressed with the Patriots at the end of this weekend.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Another game that pops out to me is the Minnesota Vikings at home against the Atlanta Falcons. Pretty dominant performance there.
I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, not at all. So it's glad to see that. But yeah, man, what a week to get things started.
Football, baby. We were talking about this before. Like, I try to say I don't like football anymore because of what the Chargers did to this city, and I still hate what they did, and I don't. Man, there's so many emotions there. But there's just nothing like football. Watch college football all day Saturday, and then the NFL on Sunday. Red Zone is just the greatest thing that's ever happened in the history of television. And, man, I can't believe football season's here. There's going to be plenty to talk about all year long.
Couldn't agree more. Well, of course, we also look to fantasy football as one of the reasons why we are still connected with the sport. You have what? Two teams?
One team. First time ever. I've only had one team.
I hear that they absolutely went off this first week.
Oh my goodness! This was it was one of those dream weeks, and already everybody in the league has been talking smack. Like, I put up 196 points in a league that normally 110 will win. It was the highest point total in the history of the league. I was really hoping for 200. And I had a chance on Monday night. I had Deshaun Watson going, and 4 more points would have gotten me to that double century mark, which has never been done in our league. But regardless of the fact that I put up all those points, everyone was still talking smack, like, oh, you blew it. This was the first week, and you already put your biggest output and blah, blah, blah. But, man, am I happy with my team. Sammy Watkins went off. He was the highest scorer in all of fantasy football. Thank goodness I had him in there. Christian McCaffrey, the highest scoring running back. Harrison Butker, the highest scoring kicker. Delaney Walker. It was one of those dream weekends, and something where I didn't really have to pay attention to my fantasy, so I could just put all of my eggs in the Seahawks basket for the Survivor League, and they tried to blow it for me, but so I still had reason to sweat the weekend out.
Yeah.
How'd your team do, Andy?
Well, I have 3. I'm going with the diversify your portfolio approach to the 2019 NFL season. So I have 3 teams. My goal every week is for 2 of my 3 teams to win in fantasy.
Yep.
And then I have the 2 Survivor Leagues. My ridiculous goal with those is to win one of those 2, beating out 64 people in ours and then 115 in the other Survivor League, so my chances are really high there. But going back to my fantasy football teams, I had 2 that I thought were going to win for sure, and then Josh Jacobs and DeAndre Hopkins showed up last night for one of my opponents. So it's hard to. I'm so different than what you're experiencing because you have the one team, and so I'm trying to have a balanced team for 3 different teams. So we'll see. I mean, it's hard to know after 1 week, but a couple. Go ahead.
No, I want to get your thoughts on this because I haven't had one team in a really long time. I've had 3 teams before. I think 3 teams is really tough. I kind of feel like the wheelhouse is 2 teams because if you have 2 teams, then you can kind of see what's going on in both leagues. You can see what the waiver wire looks like over the few weeks, see who had big performances, and go look and see if that guy maybe isn't picked up in the other one. But as soon as you get to 3 teams, it's really hard to keep track of who your players even are, who you're playing against. Like, what are your thoughts on number of teams?
You're probably right. 2 is the wheelhouse. I, of course, got a little greedy, and some friends at work asked me to be in a 3rd one. But I feel I'm getting to know my teams. It's a season-long endeavor. So we'll see. I'm pretty happy with my teams in general, though, because I feel I have pretty good depth at wide receiver across all of them. Here's something for you. I have Cam Newton in all 3 of my leagues.
Wow.
Right? That's like the one person I have across all 3 leagues. In the league that I barely lost on, I actually started Phillip Rivers instead of him, which was a very good decision.
Yeah, good call.
The other one, I have Ben Roethlisberger. So nothing
He's
really
so
sticks
hit or
out to me
miss,
about
yeah.
that. And then I have Kyler Murray in the other one.
Okay.
So there's no way I was going to start Kyler
No
Murray
chance.
in his first week, and he
Yeah.
ends up scoring nothing crazy, maybe 15, 16, 17, something like that.
All in the fourth quarter.
Cam scores, I think, 0 in one of those leagues. So he is always a mystery if you have him as a quarterback.
I mean, he was the MVP of the league a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And then he's just disappeared since then. But he's the kind of guy who's going to bite you because you're going to put him on the bench. He's going to have 35 points in a week.
Which I may start him across the board on Thursday night.
Yeah.
Because Carolina is playing the hapless Buccaneers.
Oh, boy. You didn't get a chance to see any of that Buccaneer 49
I did not.
Wow. That was ugly. About as ugly a game as you could possibly imagine for two teams that you just don't care about one bit. It was brutal. Yeah. I think about playing Cam.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about different players, how our teams did. Whether they're on your team or not, who was one or a couple of your most impressive fantasy performers this first week?
I'll start with the guy who we'll start with two guys who are on my team. One being Sammy Watkins. The Chiefs have been really good. Sometimes you get burned because the Chiefs have so much depth that they'll throw it to the tight end a ton. They'll throw it to Tyreek Hill a ton. They'll throw it to the backside of the backfield. But Sammy Watkins to go off like he did in my league, it was 46 points to lead all scorers. And now with Tyreek Hill on the shelf for a few weeks, maybe up to 5 weeks, I think he becomes legitimately a top 5 receiver in the NFL. Other guy on my team, Christian McCaffrey, he is just such a stud workhorse.
Yeah.
It's a PPR league. He catches a lot of balls. But, 200 all-purpose yards and a couple of touchdowns. He also got snaked from a touchdown at the very end of the game. That guy, in a losing effort, he left everything out there, and he is just unbelievable. A guy not on my team who had a huge performance, Lamar Jackson.
Yep.
Oh, my goodness. That guy, he makes you wish that you had him. And the way that Ravens offense looked, how dynamic they are, and as good as that defense could be, I think the Ravens may be a team that I kind of overlooked coming into the season that could turn a few heads and maybe be the favorite in that division.
Sure. I'll give you a couple more here. Austin Eckler, running back for the Chargers.
I knew you were going there, Andy.
I managed to only pick him up in the draft in one of my 3 leagues.
Yep.
And the one I got him in and I absolutely had to get him in was the draft was like the day after the Chargers said they weren't going to offer Gordon a long-term deal
Yep.
or anything outside of what they had previously offered him. So I was like, I got to pick this guy up. I picked him in like the 9th or 10th round.
Wow.
And I, of course, played him this week, and unfortunately, he and Dalvin Cook were the only players that did well on my team. So that was one of the leagues I lost in. But he's going to be probably a top 5 running back, especially in PPR this season, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's a great value.
And
pick.
then I looked to a name who I didn't know before my drafts, or know of, in particular, is T.J. Hawkinson, the tight end
Yeah, wow.
for the Detroit Lions. First-round pick,
Yeah.
but, tight ends, you're really not on your radar, even if they go in one of the first couple rounds in the real draft. So I kind of read up on him a little bit, and I drafted him in 2 of my 3 leagues. Of course, I did not start him, but I do have him as depth on the bench. So I heard a lot of good reviews about him and how he looked in that first game this week.
Yeah, he looked really solid. He had a couple of big plays even taken off the board, and still in our league put up 25 points. Matt Stafford loves to go to him. He's super sure-handed, and when he gets into space, he's fast. He's a big guy. Thomas had mentioned that he kind of reminds him a little bit of Gronk's physicality, like his presence, the big size. He played that way, and the defenders were just no match for him. I mean, they were going up against Arizona, so that's one thing, but he looks like the real deal, and Matthew Stafford throws 50 passes a game every single game. You got to know at least like 10 of those targets are going to him each week. So he's a guy who, whoever your other tight end is, think about trading him because Hawkinson's the guy you're going to want to play every week.
I'll throw one more out there before we move on, but John Ross, the wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals, The only reason I've known about this guy for a few years is because in the fantasy league where we all get together, one of the guys' names is John Ross.
Oh,
so
nice.
The fact that there was a collegiate player at Washington named John Ross who now plays for the Bengals, I've always kept my eye on him, and he went off on Sunday with Andy Dalton throwing the ball to him.
Did John Ross draft John Ross?
I don't know. I thought it was like mandatory in the league that he drafted him, but I don't know that fact for sure.
They should have a rule like I don't have any kids, but I know that if you coach your kids in Little League, that you're guaranteed to have the right to draft them if you draft them by like the 5th round or something. Or you have to draft them in the round that they would have been picked otherwise or something. So I feel like in your draft, you guys should make a John Ross exemption where whatever round he's supposed to be drafted in, you have to leave him available for John Ross to pick him until that round. And then if he does not pick him in that round, he's open, fair game. But that might be a new little wrinkle to throw into your team.
Fantasy football, always good stuff. All right, well, hey, we're back from our weekly technical difficulty break, our halftime, half the Best Coast Sports Connection. Hey, we're working on it. We're slowly trending upward. Okay, so we were talking about AB, the real AB, not me.
I think you're the real AB.
Hey,
he's Antonio Brown.
I'm just up and down, creating drama, doing all sorts of things. Okay, so here's my thing with Antonio Brown is the two teams that he's been associated with here, the Raiders and now he's going to the Patriots, they performed very well in the first week. Not saying, they don't need him, but the Raiders were fine. They moved on. All the people that you read about with the Raiders, they're like, this guy wasn't really even here. He wasn't committed. Yep. It's like we aren't going to miss him at all because he really wasn't a part of the team, part of the family. So they're clearly moving on. They looked pretty good against the Broncos last night. And then, as you said, the Patriots, quintessential Tom Brady, just orchestrating the offense, completely dominating the Steelers in all phases, not just offense. And so now AB goes there on a smaller deal than what he would have had with the Raiders. And so we've all been talking about the conspiracy theory, whether it was going to happen. But when I did see that the Raiders released him, I was like, there's a handful of teams I could see him going to, and the Patriots are definitely on that list because they've picked up the likes of a Josh Gordon several years, signing Randy Moss. These receivers that, are creating news. But I'm so happy in one sense that Antonio Brown's going there because this is the organization that's not going to deal with any of his BS,
Yep.
He really needs to go to this organization. I'm not saying that 1 year with them is going to change his life, but this is going to be the organization where they're just like, all we want is your performance on the field. That's all that we care about. It's the Brady, the Belichick way. Like this is a new era for you, I guess.
Well, what version of Antonio Brown do you think they're going to get?
I don't know.
Is he going to play ball with them? Is he going to do the Patriot way?
I don't know, Thomas. What do you think about that?
I think Antonio Brown's going to get cut by week 9. I think it's a typical.
Holy hot take, Thomas. HTT. We got AB and HTT.
I just think it's a no-brainer for Belichick. If you want to come in, you want to play, okay, we'll give you $9 million guaranteed. But if you do your antics, if you start videotaping in the locker room, you're out of here. And he has his team, and he has a way of going about it. And I agree with you, Brian. It's so funny. On Saturday for me, I was driving up to LA, and we stopped off to get coffee. And my phone just started shaking in my car, and I looked at it and they said breaking news: Antonio Brown got released. And I think I forwarded the message to you guys, and then one of you guys broke it to me that he got signed by the Patriots. But the funniest part of the drive was on the way home, listening to NFL Sirius XM NFL radio. The first call of the night was this conspiracy theorist saying that the Patriots and Antonio Brown had planned this all summer.
Collusion, baby.
And I was like, boy, you can get them on the videotaping, you can get them on the weight of the balls, but now it's manipulating rosters. Like, unbelievable with this team, how much chaos and controversy surrounds this team. And sometimes I think all of that outlives it. They've won 6 Super Bowls and been in like, how many?
All the other ones?
Yeah.
Everyone they haven't won, they were in.
Yeah. I don't know. I hope he stays there for the rest of the season just for his sake. But assuming he does shape up a little bit and he is, does become their number 1 receiver, that's scary for any NFL team defending that team.
Any team not named the Patriots.
Yeah.
And don't you have him on a team? On one
I
of your
do,
fantasy?
I do.
Oh.
That's the one I got creamed in this week because I had him slotted as one of my top 2 receivers, and then Devontae Adams did absolutely nothing on Thursday night, and then I had to bench AB, of course. So I don't know. I feel like he's not going to be a top-tier fantasy receiver in going to the Patriots.
You don't think so?
I don't.
I think
he's gonna garner so much of the attention. I mean, he'll perform, but I think Brady just spreads it around so much with Gordon and Edelman and their backs, Burkhead and James White. So I still think he's going to be a good wide receiver, just not the Antonio Brown numbers that we've seen the last 5 years.
I think he could become a Randy Moss type target for Tom Brady, because Brady went to Randy Moss because he had that ability. Most of the guys they give to Tom Brady don't have the skill set that a Randy Moss has or that an Antonio Brown has, and they become household names because Tom Brady makes them that great. I thought with Antonio Brown going to the Raiders, he was kind of going to be a 50-50 whether or not he could be as successful because he's switching to a quarterback like Derek Carr. The moment you give him Tom Brady, that's another 1,000 yards receiving, 100 receptions. Antonio Brown is going to be, if he can shape up and not do what Thomas thinks, and that's make $1 million for 9 weeks and then quit or get cut, I think he has a chance to be, again, the top, 1, 2, 3 receiver in the entire NFL. I don't have him. I did. Man, I'm jealous of you, Andy.
I'm scared, man. I just, with all the drama in the offseason, I hope it somehow translates into some results. There's been the story of how Tom Brady has offered to have AB stay with him and get accustomed to living in Boston and becoming a part of the Patriots. As I was reading one of the stories, I realized that Tom Brady's house is worth $40 million. Sidebar. But I was like, oh wow, that'd be nice to stay at Brady's house for a few weeks to get accustomed to the team.
You think he's going to charge him rent?
Oh, just $1 million a month. That's all rent.
Also, Tom Brady's wife probably bought the house.
I was going to say, that's why it's understandable.
She's the breadwinner in that family.
Man, what a life. Okay, let's. Any other thoughts on AB or that situation?
Nope, I got nothing.
Okay, so you did mention how Moss was that go-to target, especially in the 2007 season, I want to say, when they went undefeated and then lost to the Giants. I've already heard talk about the Patriots going undefeated this season. You probably always hear that a little bit early on in the season with the Patriots because they've done it and they normally always get to the playoffs, the AFC Championship, and a lot of times the Super Bowl. But then I could see them going 8-0 to start this season. But then they have a stretch where they play like the Browns, the Ravens, the Eagles, the Cowboys, and the Chiefs. Like 5 straight weeks, like potential playoff teams. So I don't think it's going to happen, for what it's worth.
Man, Andy, talk about transitions. This guy's smooth. Thomas, isn't he good? What about this week, Andy? Because I don't know if the Patriots make it to 2-0, alone 16-0, or eventually 19-0. I think they've got their hands full with the worst team in the NFL on the road at Miami. What do you think?
Well, yeah. Let's set it up a little bit. Patriots traveling to Miami. As we've seen today, about an 18.5, 19-point favorite.
That's like college lines.
Right?
That's a college spread, basically.
We saw what was the Dolphins last week. As you mentioned in your locks last week, they say they're going to improve. They never improve. And
never.
They very much did not improve.
Dolphins going to start.
So we will say this, Thomas and I, and we were talking about it before. The Patriots have lost 5 of the last 6 games against the Dolphins in Miami. Only time winning of those 6 games was in 2016. So they've lost the last 2. You will remember, though, that last year it took the miracle in Miami for the Dolphins to win on the lucky last play as Gronk was unable to make the tackle. But, I mean, they're a lock for me this year. After how I saw they play against Pittsburgh, there's no way that the Patriots lose this one.
This is my play game.
Oh.
Me too, baby. 100%. I'm with Thomas on this.
I believe in football gods and what they give me. And Miami reincarnates into the 72 Dolphins and play there, just destroy the Pats. And Tom Brady looks like the quarterback in Michigan behind Drew Henson.
He forgets how to play football.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I just stay away from this game. I think it's all sets up for Belichick to lose this game. It happened last year with Matt Patricia after Matt Patricia got embarrassed by the Jets on Monday night. Sunday night, it was like, oh, my God, the Patriots are coming in another whitewash, and he beats them like 31-10, some ridiculous score. And I just think it's, again, because I just think it takes everything away from what the press wants. The press want the Pats to be undefeated, and Belichick goes 1-1, and then he's like, I don't even know what we are. I got to look at the film, and he just puts his hands up in the air, and then they don't come back until he's on a roll again. And that's the way he just loves it. He's the most boringest coach, but he's so effective at it. It's amazing.
Brian, why do you have doubts about this game?
So, it's one of those weird things where it doesn't make any sense at all, but it happens every single time. And over the last, like you said, 6 years, 5 times, but it just feels like every single time, even when they're playing in New England, the games are way too tight. Like, the teams are so mismatched on paper, but that's the one team that gives them fits. And I'm not going to say like Miami was looking ahead to New England and overlooking Baltimore, because Miami can't overlook anybody, let's be real. But I cannot pick that game. And if I was a betting man, I would bet the house on the Dolphins covering that 18.5, 19 points. I don't own a house, so that's easy for me to bet the house. But if I did, I still wouldn't put it on the line. What I'm trying to say is I am very confident that it's going to be a lot closer game than people are giving it credit, and it would just be so easy, a snap judgment, to just be like, oh my God, worst team, worst loss, one of the best teams, defending Super Bowl champion, it's going to be a slaughter. I'm taking the Patriots. I'm staying away from that like the plague. Thomas and I are on the same page there. Andy, I think you're picking the way you're
I might pick them. Here's my thing.
All right.
You do have a good point in saying that, like, it doesn't make any sense for the Dolphins to win, and this is like one of those games in a Survivor League where the favorite loses, and
and everyone's going down.
That would wipe out probably 80% of it. I would guess maybe.
I would think so too, unless they're watching this and they find out otherwise. But
3/4 of the folks are probably going to take the Patriots.
Yep.
Here's my thing: we do get Antonio Brown this week. If he is as good as you say he's going to be, then I think that helps the Patriots. I mean, it is his first week with them, so he probably doesn't, have as big of a impact as he may have long term. But this is a better Patriots team, I would think, than last year, even one that went to the Super Bowl. This is an even worse Dolphins team. We're talking about players wanting to get traded away from the team after the first game of the season. This is an 0-16 type team that we have here in the Dolphins. And if the Ravens beat them 59-10 last week, sure as hell the Patriots are going to cream them. That's my logic there.
I think Josh Rosen is going to play quarterback for the Dolphins, and they're going to win like 24-21.
Although
it's going to be the most ridiculous thing ever.
Did Fitz get injured, or is he?
No, okay, I think he got benched for ineffectiveness, and Rosen's the backup.
Rosen is going to start, though?
No, I don't know. I don't know. I'm saying it's the kind of thing that he could happen.
This is the game, though, where Fitzpatrick would show
go
his
off.
magic.
Yeah, the
once
Fitzmagic.
Once a year, Fitzmagic would come out. So I'm sticking to my guns. I'm saying no way, but
So are you picking them?
They're one of my top couple teams that I'm picking.
Okay.
I'm not saying for sure, but
All right.
I will.
I'm staying away.
Keeping it close to the vest, Thomas.
Oh,
Well, I'm going to encourage all of you to pick the Patriots. Waste them now. They're going to lose. You're going to be out. I'm going to pick them next week against whoever the hell they're playing. I don't care because they're going to win that.
okay. So Patriots, they're the big favorite.
Yep.
What's another game that you're maybe picking or that for sure is a lock to you?
Oh, my goodness. This is a tough week. I mean, I thought week 1 was tough. But at least in week 1, like, I was pretty confident about certain things, and they all went wrong. Now in week 2, I don't know anything about anything.
That's the thing about Survivor. It's like if you get through the first 3 weeks, like
Yeah.
you know who the teams are. But these
Yeah.
first 3 weeks, even though the Ravens creamed the Dolphins, they're a huge favorite against the Cardinals. They
Yep.
could have a small relapse. So it's the first 3 weeks. There's so much inconsistency across the teams that you just hope to get out of there alive.
I mean, I thought of all the teams I watched play, the Bucks, outside of the Dolphins. Okay, the Dolphins were just not even. They're dumb. But the Bucks were probably the worst team that I saw over the weekend. That Bucks-Niners game was brutal to watch. But I think Minnesota could be really good. They're playing against the Redskins this week, and the Redskins almost knocked half of everybody out of the pool last week. So I don't know. It's on the road. I don't know how they'll play outside of the dome. But, yeah, I don't know. This week's tough. I'm kind of leaning Vikings, but I just don't know. I think Washington could be a little better than I was giving them credit for, and Minnesota might not be as good as they looked last week. It's going to be tough. I still haven't made up my mind.
Yeah.
Tomas.
I got an upset special as a lock.
Oh, baby.
So you're upset and
Upset
lock.
special and a lock at the same time. Only
Chargers are
HTT.
going back east for the first time this year. They are notoriously a bad 10 a.m. kickoff team.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to lose to the Lions on the Lions home opener. I just see it.
I could see that happening. I wouldn't call it a lock. I mean, it is in a dome, so that does help the Chargers there. I think that's going to be a close game no matter what, but I couldn't call it a lock myself.
I did.
The linebacker to cover the tight end.
That kid is
Tight
pretty
ends
good.
always go off on the Chargers, it seems.
And he might be the best young tight end, as we already talked about. With
Stafford
Detroit.
is always throws for close to 300 yards every week.
Yeah.
He's the most productive quarterback never to win a playoff game.
It's because he throws too many times. But
65.
Yeah.
Yeah.
they looked really good for 3 quarters, and then they looked so bad for a quarter and overtime against a team that I forgot the Cardinals are going to Baltimore. That's my pick. It's over. I'm taking Baltimore. The Cardinals looked so bad for 3 quarters. They looked pretty good in that fourth quarter. They had to have a lot of breaks go their way to get back into that game and force overtime. But Murray, just against that Ravens team in Baltimore, west to east travel, outside, they're going to get absolutely throttled. I'm picking Baltimore.
Yeah,
The
I'd
end.
be surprised with that. When we were looking before we went on here, I thought that might be a trap game, but I can't make a logical argument against that. I like both the Texans at home against the Jaguars, 8.5 favorites, and the Panthers at home against the Bucks, 7.5 favorites. But as I said before, I hate divisional games. I picked one last week, and you saw how much
Yeah, you were sweating it out.
anxiety that causes early on. So those are my. I guess I'll call them my locks. The Patriots, Ravens, Texans, and Panthers. I don't know who I'm going to pick. I'm going to be doubting it the whole time. One thing I start doing at this point, if I've survived the first week, is to start looking ahead a couple weeks. If the Patriots have a good matchup next week, maybe I go with the Ravens and avoid the Patriots.
So that's something, and I've never done this before, so I don't know, but that's something I have told myself from the beginning I'm not going to do. I don't ever want to look ahead. I'm just going week to week. I don't want to be like, well, I think this team's going to win this week, but I definitely think they're going to win next week. So I'm going to save them. If I think a team's a lock, i.e. Ravens against Cardinals, I'm taking them and hoping that everybody else loses that Patriots-Dolphins game. I'm just going week to week. So I know there are different philosophies, and I've never done it. So maybe I'll get burned on that. But, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like that's
agree with you.
I
I think, as I mentioned, just getting through the first few weeks, then you get obviously a better idea of who the good teams really are. So that's something I normally don't do until a few weeks down the road. The only reason that brought it to my mind is that one of the individuals in our league, I went and I looked at their picks, and they had a pick for every week.
You already did the season?
All 7 weeks.
Wow.
That's the guy that's going to lose this week, I guarantee it.
Wow.
Okay, so what about we've kind of talked about, you guys mentioned the Patriots. Is that your plague on paper?
It is for me, yeah.
Yeah, for me
Just
too.
because it looks so good, like you can't turn it down, and I don't know. There's a chance.
I'll give you another plague game. The Chiefs at the Raiders.
Oh,
Chiefs
interesting.
favored by 7.5. I like what I saw from the Raiders. I mean, I don't like saying it, but it happened. And
No Tyreek.
no Tyreek Hill.
It's like
In
Travis
Oakland,
Kelce and
and
Sammy
you
Watkins.
saw what that atmosphere was like
Yeah.
on a Monday night against a divisional opponent. You'll see it again there in Oakland. I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs lost. I'll say that.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah,
with you
divisional
on
game
that.
on the road.
Yeah.
I like that.
I'm picking the Raiders too.
You are picking I'm not picking the Raiders. Saying I don't know about. I don't think the Chiefs are the lock that we would think based on week one.
Yeah.
There's another game that I do like, and it's the 49ers at the Bengals. I'm not going to pick it.
Yeah.
Because I'm not putting all my faith in the 49ers, who look so bad. But the 49ers had a handful of touchdowns taken off the board. Kittle is the best tight end in the NFL. Their defense looked really good, had a couple of pick sixes. Their cornerbacks looked solid. And the Bengals, I'm biased because I was pulling for Seattle so hard in that game because I had the Seahawks, but they had a couple of the most ridiculous long plays, the John Ross plays that you're talking about. Like, that should never happen. And I think what the Bengals did was a little more magic than they are good. So I'm taking San Francisco. They're getting like 1.5 on the road or something. I'm taking them straight up to beat the Bengals. And I will say, I was going to say it's a lock. It's more, that's my upset special. 49ers on the road at Cincinnati. West to east. Got them, baby.
There's a lot of good matchups where the line's only 1.5, 2.5. Let me see here. I like the Seahawks this week on the road against the Steelers. The Steelers a 4-point favorite.
Whew.
I mean, neither of those teams really impressed the first
No.
week, right? But a little bit of dysfunction right now in the Steel City.
Yep.
You could, just that face on Mike Tomlin the entire game, just like, what is this team that I'm coaching? So I like the Seahawks on the road there against the Steelers.
I could see that.
I think the Steelers are going to come back. They always are tough in Heinz Field. I think their overall record, don't hold me to it, but I think it's like 120 and like 35 at Heinz Field.
Oh, my gosh. That's pretty good. I'd say that's all right.
Yeah, not too shabby.
No. They like that home cooking.
I know, and especially after they got, I didn't watch the game, but from what I read, they just got destroyed from
Yeah, that was
kickoff, so it's going to be a wake-up call for them.
that was brutal.
Yeah, certainly.
And another team moved flying back from the West Coast to the East Coast, the Seahawks.
That's always a good point. I like the Seahawks, though. Okay, so did we give our picks last week, or we just said our locks?
Well, we gave our picks ago,
Yeah.
and then we did our locks and all that. I'm down to give my picks. I'm taking the Ravens. That's it. I forgot about it. I tried to talk myself into some other looks, but I liked that Carolina because I thought the Bucs were so bad. But I'm going Ravens, baby. the Cardinals were not as good as that overtime game, and Baltimore is that good.
Yeah, I think the Patriots are at home against the Jets next week. I'm just
Andy, I didn't ask you about next.
I know. I'm just wondering if and when I should save the Patriots. But I've made my points earlier. I think I have to go with the Patriots. There's no other choice I have.
I like that you're not looking ahead.
I'm undecided. There's
Undecided.
a few games I'm under.
No, that's okay. It's only Tuesday, right? I may be lying to you. Maybe pulling the real AB move here and going.
You guys are colluding here. Kyler Murray's going to go in and throw for 800 yards against the Ravens, and I'm going to lose. I'm going to bow out in Baltimore. Speaking of the Cardinals, they played an overtime game against the Lions, and which team won?
Neither.
Neither. That's right. So, what are your guys' thoughts on the new overtime and the fact that both teams kicked field goals in overtime, and because it's only a 10-minute overtime, they got to the end of the game, neither team wins, walk away with a tie. That just feels like soccer. Like, you don't tie in football. They need to go to college or something. What are your thoughts on NFL?
I like a shortened time
Yeah.
for the overtime just because those games that, like, once every 5 years that did go to a tie when there was the old rules, 15-minute overtime, ended up being a 4-hour game. But yeah, I wish it was different rules. Like, I feel like the college overtime is the best overtime you could imagine. So I wouldn't mind seeing that type of change. Yeah, we have seen a lot more tie ball games recently.
I never knew I missed 5 minutes so much. It's so amazing how fast those overtimes go by.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference.
10 minutes, and I think you mentioned off air, Brian. If you're lucky if you get 3 offensive possessions in overtime, and it really kind of cuts down what you can do. And I don't know. I mean, I don't like the 10-minute overtime. I think they should have this 1 15-minute. I wouldn't mind going to the college, but I don't think the NFL will ever do that.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. It just seems like ties are up. And I think they love it because I think they love it for the standings of, like, how a team could, with a tie, could get ahead of another team and to win a division. So, I don't know. The NFL's so weird. They have these little quirks that they love. They love their name always in the news, positive or negative. And to me, they just love the tie factor, especially during the playoff time.
But it's so hard to ignore the NFL. Even I claim to not like football, not like the NFL. And I just can't stop watching and digesting content, reading every article, talking about it with you guys, playing fantasy, doing a Survivor League. Like, the NFL rules everything. It's the highest rated television program, not just sport, but television program every single week, every single year. It's the top 25 rated program. Like, the NFL literally is king in this country, and it's crazy. I don't know.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of issues over the last couple years, but this year it seems like there's nothing really brewing, so to speak. So yeah, I mean, it's alive and well. So yeah.
Andy said ruin. Aztecs.
Ooh.
Oh, baby. Big win over the weekend at UCLA, at the Rose Bowl. Thomas, you were there. Initial thoughts?
It was such a surreal moment sitting with Aztec alums watching the game. And, first you walk into the Rose Bowl, get harassed by UCLA fans. And then you're kind of in the middle of the crowd, and you're like, you couldn't even beat Cincinnati. Keep quiet. And then, it was, at first, the Bruins, I think, I missed some of the first quarter, but I think they scored first, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they scored after a punt return, took it into Aztec territory, and they went 40 yards in a couple of plays. But, they only had 40 yards to gain, and that was pretty much the only time UCLA looked good the entire game was that first possession. After that, it was...
But talking to people that were at the week 1 against Weber State, they said the spread offense that the Aztecs are using looked much better in week 2 than it did in week 1. It seems like the players understand it more and getting more reps and getting more in tune. So, and Agnew looks like the perfect quarterback for that type of offense. I mean, he just made right decisions and he was getting heavily pressured early in the game, and I was kind of concerned for him because the pocket would break down, but he would just whip it out at the last minute to those little flat passes and get big yardage. So he did an excellent job. It was a great win, and the defense is really good, and it's probably the highlight of this team once again.
Yep.
I didn't watch the game, but I hope this victory and hopefully a better team this year than last year kind of renews the interest of San Diego sports fans in the Aztecs.
Yeah.
It's just hard when we're in the conference that we're in and not, a Power 5 conference for them to really get on the radar.
Yeah, it's hard to get super excited when you know that the ceiling is you have to go undefeated to even get invited to a New Year's Six Bowl. And then if you lose 1 or 2 games, you're going to be in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl or the New Mexico Bowl or something like that. So it's literally like undefeated or bust, and that can become challenging because you lose a game early in the season, and it's easy to kind of fall back. And we talk about how much people are paying attention to the NFL. It's just tough. Not having a tournament like in basketball, college football, if you're not a power conference fan, then your team has to go undefeated or else it's tough sledding. But I was also, I expected the Aztecs to go in and perform well. They've been better than UCLA for the last decade. Under Rocky Long, they've had the better team every single year.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about it was the first time they've ever beaten UCLA. Well, it's the first time they've played under this regime. And the Aztecs have been really, really good for a long time. Hopefully people will take notice. I know that, on the national stage, it kind of flew under the radar again. But let's get another win this week. Keep talking Aztec football. We're right here in the shadow of Mission Valley. Maybe we'll get a BCSC group going to the game one of these weeks, and maybe do a pod from the parking lot over there. A lot of fun.
Course.
Yeah.
You may have to find the game. Finds week, Flow Football. That's took me a little bit to find it, to set it up, to watch it this weekend. But I'm right with you, Brian. I think it's going to be a special year for them, especially with the good mix that they have offensively. It seems like a better mix than they had last year.
Absolutely.
Let's end it, I guess. We've talked about Antonio Brown a bit today. So this is a terrible transition, but an Antonio Brown-esque player of the NBA several decades ago, Dennis Rodman. I saw in the news today there's a new 30 for 30 documentary coming out tonight on ESPN about Dennis Rodman. I think it's called For Better or Worse, something like that.
It should be called For Better or Worm.
Oh,
there you go. I like that.
good thought.
I should be working that.
So I saw it, and that just kind of opened up the memory bank, and I watched a few videos. He was on a couple of shows today. What a guy to watch in the NBA. He was always creating news off the court, but maybe the best rebounder, one of the top rebounders all time in the NBA, and he played for a lot of great teams, so he was relevant for most of his career. What are some of the first thoughts that come to you when thinking about Dennis Rodman's career?
Dennis Rodman was probably the best instinctive rebounder that I've ever seen play, and that my dad's ever seen play. And my dad's been around basketball his entire life, played for a really long time, and I trust his word on it. And he always wanted me to watch Dennis Rodman and read the ball. Don't just read the players. Like, Dennis Rodman was always in the right place because he paid so much attention and just had such a knack for being in the right spot to get rebounds. But honestly, the first thing I think about when I think of Dennis Rodman is him wearing a wedding dress. It's the off-the-court stuff. He was a total beast on the court, but his off-the-court personality, he was the first person who was like out there and weird and embraced it and didn't care at all about what people thought. And I just thought that was such a unique personality trait. And I don't know, I always I just kind of always admired that he did not care at all what people thought, and he was just his own guy, and such a unique person off the court and a unique talent on the court that honestly, I don't know if there's ever going to be somebody like him again in any sport.
Yeah. What a character. I just remember as a kid, especially when he was with the Spurs, is really when he came onto my radar. Just what color hair was it going to be the next game, you know? And then kind of as a kid, most kids were fans of Jordan, so he had those 3 years. Or I think he was on the Bulls for 4 years, but 3 of them where they did their second three-peat. So just the balance that he brought to that team was obviously a lot of fun to watch. But you think of him just as much off the court as you do with his great play on the court.
Yeah, he was by far the best big man defender I've ever seen. I mean, his footwork was simply off the charts. What he did to guys like Sean Kemp, I mean, took him out of his game. Obviously, Karl Malone, they got into such a feud that they went to wrestling during the summer and wrestled one another. So I mean, it was.
Of course,
I think it was in San Diego actually, the wrestling match, and it was just everything about Rodman. And I agree with you, Brian. I mean, I think of every little thing, like him dating Madonna and him telling everybody that he wasn't, even though he was holding her hand. It was such this bizarre behavior, and then the shoe incident with the Lakers. I mean, it was like there's so many little bits and pieces of his career that when he kicked that photographer and started huge brawl on the court, and it was funny because I was reading when he retired. I was reading about his overall career, and I was just shocked. Like he was like a 20-point scorer in college. And it just seemed like he never cared about scoring in the NBA, and I was just like, just amazing, like how those athletes are so much. They can probably do anything they wanted to, but like they just concentrate on certain parts of their game and they become brilliant. And I was like, this guy could have been like a 20-point scorer easily in the NBA.
Yeah, I thought he had never scored a basket in his entire life, growing up through college into the NBA, anything. But you're right, these guys, if they were at like 24-hour fitness or at the Muni gym or whatever, they would score every single time down the court. They're just that talented and athletic, and it goes to show that he knew that his niche in the NBA was rebounding and being a stud on defense and just being, having sheer will above everybody else, and he played up to that. He didn't have to score, and he didn't want to score, and don't even give me the ball. I'll just set some screens and get rebounds and let you shoot it again. He was a perfect complementary player to all the teams he played on, and yeah, what a talent. Yeah,
I'm really excited to see how that looks. Enjoy the 30 for 30 documentaries.
I got a little Rodman aside.
Oh, yes, let's do tell.
In 2017, my band was playing at Kaboo, and our dressing room was right next to T-Pain, and Dennis Rodman was there as a guest of T-Pain's. And this is an event. Shaq had been there. Tom Petty was performing. Like, we saw a lot of big stars over the weekend, and Dennis Rodman was by far the biggest star of the entire weekend. He had a really ridiculous outfit on, and he's also like 100 feet tall, and I'm close to 100 feet. I'm like 99 feet tall, and he towered over me and just made me feel small. And I fangirled with him, and I ran up to him and gave him some love and called him the Worm and asked for a photo, and that was the biggest star I saw all weekend. He turned it down. Yeah, but he was very nice, and Dennis Rodman. So that's what I think about now when I think about the Worm.
Good story. Well, that's going to about wrap it up, unless my friends have any other final words.
Let's eat some tacos.
I was going to say, man, it is Taco Tuesday. Yeah. We've done our share of analysis, and fingers crossed that our survivor picks hold up for week 2.
Yep.
All right, my friends, Brian Vilvin, my co-host, Thomas Conroy, the producer. I'm Andy Bishop saying so long. We'll catch you next time on the Best Coast Sports Connection.